All right, well, welcome to another lesson for H ready timers. This will be the second and last one for the week because we're jumping ahead to lesson 49 and 50 in one. So this week 47, 48, 49, and 50. And we are looking at a very short lesson. I'm saying content wise, in terms of the subject material around continue from part five in this lesson to 12 as we move along. And I've got a whole bunch of great videos that you're going to enjoy that really the one focuses on specifically an SABC broadcast. I think it is a busy. I'm quite sure. You know me and my memory. Anyway, we're going to look at how to actually write the news, which I know I have covered in a previous lesson, but I'm going to play a video with that because today we're looking at the semantics, some very short, quick tips on how to write news bulletins or script copy for radio, right? And then there's one more also that I laid out. Yeah, we'll see what it is in just a moment. There are three videos that I know for sure. And so we can actually have a look at that. All right. So this particular lesson comes from both textbooks. Struggle with that surname Cullinan and Nash. There we go. Next little radio, the chapter 5, 5.3.2. Sourcing News, page 185 to 192. And from Geller's book, Beyond Powerful Radio. And that's News Writing, chapter 23, page 265 to 274. Right. So this is where we're going to start off. There are a couple of tips. I'm just going to show you here, in advance where we're going to. These two particular slides over here. And then we'll do a bit of the quiz end of the the lesson. Okay, all right. So Mackie Morris's dazzling dozen, right? These are tips for you to be able to write great copy. And let's just quickly recap as to what we know already about the so about oh man, I'm not gonna say this now. We build a foundation here at Boston. So when I say foundation, when we look at structures and obviously kind of ideas and concepts or whatever it may be, that does obviously reflect on the subject matter that we are teaching you. We look at, again, we look at a general approach to how something is done. So, for example, news writing, I do get, and I have stated before, that there are hybrids. There are many different versions and ways that people, I'm saying in radio stations are presenting and structuring, compiling, and obviously presenting their news. And so we don't say that that isn't quote unquote correct, or this is the only correct way. We're saying we do acknowledge always that within mediums in general, there's going to be a personal approach, and that is based on the business strategy of that particular entity. So it might be a television station or radio station or a newspaper, digital newspaper. Yeah, you know me and my words, eh? But it's okay. I'm doing a little bit better than I was a couple of months ago. All right. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so the thing is that we know that everyone has kind of their own way, but the foundation is always the same, always the same. So when we did the inverted pyramid of news, like everyone uses that approach, right? For example, we start with leads. We know that leads are how any kind of bulletin or story is started, and so on and so forth. And obviously, again, kind of the bells and whistles that we include, either sports or traffic or indicators. How do we do that? How do we perhaps maybe like kind of add value to that particular bulletin? Maybe looking at Bitcoin or so cryptocurrencies, should that be relevant to our listener, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so just to kind of recap on that, do you know that if you are go back and look at that lesson, and do make sure that you do contact me directly, because you do have my number on a WhatsApp group. You can, if you don't want to share there specifically, in terms of like more of a public forum, you're more than welcome to DM me directly, and let's set up a time, right? As we have, and as I do with students across obviously the year, let me put like half an hour. aside and let's quickly just iron out some issues so that you are obviously confident in moving forward with your studies and your ability, right, to be able to do what you need to do in this particular field of study, right? So, number one, write factually and accurately. Goes without saying, but the best technique and the finest form mean nothing if the copy is actually wrong, right? We have discussed the importance of factuality because it is one, the right thing to do, right? Ethics, it's our ethos within radio to be able to make sure that our listeners are informed with the correct information that does then empower them in some kind of way in their daily lives, right? So, write in the active voice because new is news, right? So, new is news. Today, your copy will be tighter, it'll be complete, it'll be easier to listen to and more interesting, all right? If you write any active voice, because it makes it a sense of urgency, man. Like it's today, it's now, it's this, you know. So when I say this, sure, like let's look at some examples. So do whatever you must to avoid passive voice or past tense. So he says instead of he said, tells instead of was told. There are small things that confuse most of us, all of us. Doesn't matter if you're a student or even if you are a veteran, right? As to these very small differences between, like we're writing a story that happened last week or yesterday or last night, whatever it is. So it is in the past. How do we make that sound current, right? Or to, like well, or current and active? Well, again, we're saying on Wednesday or last night the Prime Minister said, the government official said, right? So we can change that. Oh, sorry, not said, man. What am I saying to you? Released a statement saying, right? For example, I can work that around. That sounds much better instead of me using the past tense. Quite, it was out of default, man. Default, right? So we want to be able to change these very small things, right? His statement tells us more about the government's plan, right? The government's plan on tackling whatever it is, unemployment. Okay, right in the present or present perfect tenses. So they make your copy more immediate, right? And immediacy is more interesting. Keep your writing very simple because one, it has to be processed by a passive audience. So when I say passive audience, once again, just say the same thing again. People are doing different things while they are listening to the radio in specific. And so the thing is that while they are driving, while they are at work, or while they are at gym, or whatever it may be, right? The brain has a massive capacity to do many things. We know that our brains are super, super cool in the sense that they genuinely, I mean, what an amazing thing, right? So 100% we can listen to the radio and we can wash dishes or we can clean the carpets. I'm kind of referring to my own week here, right, of cleaning the house and being able to process information in the background. Because if I am actively, I say I make an active choice to listen passively to a medium, I can get both things done. So, for example, what I got my attention on, like for example, cleaning the kitchen, and again, also listening to something and consuming that. We got to also remember that we should not then use any terminology or any kind of like so I'm going to say hoity-toity, but it's colloquial language, right? So language that is too fancy, quote unquote, once again, that one, maybe a lot of people don't even know what the words mean, those bigger words or more complex words. There are so many words in the English dictionary. I don't even know the English language. It is amazing. And I'm not marveling because I actually myself can't stand language. I'm saying language studies, right? I was never good at it. I don't have a knack for it either. But the more obviously I move through every single day in my life and I watch people speak and specifically like professors or whatever it may be, who have this humongous range when it comes to their vocab, right? It's really impressive, I suppose, when they are using really big and complex terminology, but also, to be quite honest, as a quote unquote normal person, in an everyday situation like myself, I don't really understand what they're saying. What we normally do quite a, like I say, a complex word, is that we decide to kind of decide on its description or its definition based on the context in which it is being used. But of course, we can make those mistakes, and because no one's there to fix it, right, or to correct us. So, having said all of that long-winded approach to why it is unnecessary and also not effective to use colloquial language, right? Rather keep it simple, right? So that everyone understands. You can always break down something that is quite complex or confusing, I suppose, to a larger audience, right? And break it down into simpler language, right? So give the audience a better chance to understand the story. Be complete is the fifth one over here. Make sure your quest for brevity, remember, brevity is saying just the right amount of everything in just the right amount of words, right? So not using anything more, anything less in terms of the amount of words and what you are saying to make sure that you've stated a point, right? In news specifically, there is no need to elaborate once the fact is actually stated. So make sure that your quest for brevity and conciseness does not cause you to omit necessary information. All right, let's have a look at some others here. Be creative, stick to the rules, but develop your own style. Try to say the same old thing in a new way. So make use of the rule of threes, right? Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Ah, or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? See the rule of threes. Ah, oh my goodness gracious me. You see what I just did, the rule of three. Right, anyway, and other effective writing devices that cause copy to be more interesting. Please avoid sensationalism, as I've repeated countless times before, right? Write to be actually heard. So make the statements meaningful. I'm saying the facts that you are sharing meaningful and useful and relevant to that audience. Maintain a sense of rhythm in your writing. All life has rhythm, and rhythmic writing is easier to hear. So be careful of confusing homonyms, right? Always test so things like, again, homonyms, hyperboles, what are the other ones as well? There's a whole bunch we learned, I think, when we were like in grade 4 or 5 or 6, somewhere around there. But a whole bunch of kind of like, again, it's colorful English, right? Try and avoid that completely and just stick to straightforward facts, right? Always test your broadcast copy by reading it out loud. Why? One, it might look good on paper, but the thing is, the sentence might be far too long, right? You're using commas. Here we go, avoiding commas, and you don't have a place to actually catch your breath in a way that the listener can't hear you catch your breath, right? So you must restructure and rewrite your copy to make it really something that you're comfortable with executing confidently, okay? But also the way that we write in our heads, it looks really good. When we start talking, man, it sounds like a lot worse, right, than we actually had first anticipated it to actually be. Not we anticipated it to be rubbish, but it comes out not so great. And so when you hear it out loud, right, you will hear where the mistakes are. Not only that, the big thing about having to say it out loud is for you to be able to conquer and own words, pronunciations, names, people's names, saying street names, country names, company names, whatever it is that you don't know how to pronounce, and you need to go and YouTube the pronunciation of that. Right? Avoid interrupted, and please don't assume that you actually know how to pronounce it. Right? If you've never seen that particular word before or haven't used it quite readily within your context of normal conversation, right? So avoid interruptives, so on. Do not force the listener to make difficult mental connections. Put modifiers next to what they modify. So do not split verb phrases. What's a verb? A verb is an adjective. Yeah, look at my English. An adjective is an action, right? A verb is no, a verb is an action. An adjective descriptive. Let me just quickly, because man, I told you my English sucks. All right, so what is a verb?
This is the definition of verb, a word used to describe an action, state, or occurrence, and forming the main part of the predicate of a sentence,
Okay,
such as he.
okay, I was right. I was right. Let's do adjective quickly. What is an adjective? An adjective is a word that modifies or describes a noun or a pronoun. A noun we know is a naming word, and a pronoun is like a he or she or whatever. That much I do know, right? Okay, let's go look at homonym, right? What is a homonym?
This is the definition of homonym, each of two or more words having the same spelling or pronunciation, but different meanings and origins.
Okay, even I mispronounced it. I mean, it's a homonym. It's a homonym. Wow. Yeah, man. I do not want to reflect on how badly I did in English at school. All right. Anyway, see, now I learned. Now I learned. See that? Just go Google something, man. YouTube something. All right, as it is. Okay. Avoid commas. A comma demands a hitch in your reading, and the result is a jerkiness that frustrates the listener. It really is, man. So when you do find a comma, rather split it up into another sentence, right? Avoid commas so that they eliminate awkward subordinate clauses. A subordinate clause means so this I actually can say I think with full confidence. In other words, we have a statement that we are trying to make. A subordinate clause just means like we are elaborating further and further and further, right? Awkward. Further on what we have stated in the first sentence, right? Such clauses kill the impact of a copy. That's yeah. So I'm right? Okay, especially if they came at the top of the story or sentence. Put a comma only where you intend to actually pause, right? So we're going to pause and we're going to continue stating this, say a little bit of an elaboration. Let me put it this way. Okay. So we normally use commas to combine sentences in a way. We also use and ors, which is not how we write copy at all. Avoid that, right? When we do use the comma, it's because there's a really long fact, for example, that we need to maybe state that needs a bit of a break to be able to go to the second part of its quote unquote definition, right? Or it's the rest of its entirety, right? And in that sense, we can maybe use a comma, right? For example, it says a impact of copy, comma, especially if you came or come at the top of a story or a sentence. Right. Anyway, avoid numbers. The listener has trouble remembering them, so remember only use the most important numbers for the stats that make the core of the news story understandable or credible, whatever it may be. 48% of the population consisting of nearly 987,000 people. Try about half the population of nearly a million. It's easier to see and remember. Avoid pronouns. So if you must use a pronoun, make sure it agrees with its, oh my goodness, antecedent, right? Okay, so let's do English 101, right? I said a pronoun. Pronoun is like he, she, I, whatever it may be. What is a pronoun? A pronoun is a word that replaces a noun or phrase, allowing you to refer to a person, place, thing, or idea without repeating the noun itself. For example, instead of saying the cat sat on the mat, the cat was fluffy. You could say the cat sat on the mat, it was fluffy, where it is the pronoun. That's what I was saying to you, right? Okay. Pronouns are used to avoid repetition. And so it says there, yo, avoid the pronouns. I also said back there, maybe you could say he said. I think you should when you have already stated who the person is, right? And obviously they kind of their when I say the authority as to what it is. Authoritatively, are they the minister? Are they a policeman? Are they the head of police? Are they a lecturer? Are they a lecturer at Boston Media House, right? You would say their name and then would tend to one. Yeah, you know what? Actually, now that I think of it, we don't actually use a lot of pronouns, right? We do normally say Mrs. this or Jordan was heard to repeat. Yeah, we do actually avoid pronouns. I'm so sorry. That is right. Yeah, that didn't even think about that. Because I just do it kind of automatically, which doesn't. I mean, isn't a good enough reason. I think I've just done it so many times over the years, correctly, learning from the incorrect way in the beginning. That it's good to refresh. Okay, okay. Antecedent. Let's do that. Let me just do that again. I want a clear one. What is an antecedent? Ah,
This is the definition of antecedent. A thing that existed before or logically precedes another.
okay. So there are some examples. Um, like for example, talking about a person's ancestors or family or social background. Her early life and antecedents have been traced. But that doesn't make any sense. I'm saying to here is an example of an antecedent. I'm gonna read it out, obviously, right? So in grammar, an antecedent is the noun that a pronoun, we now know what noun is, it's a naming word, remember? A pronoun is obviously kind of the he, she, it, right? It refers to or replaces. Essentially, it's the original word that the pronoun stands in for. Examples. Here's a simple noun replacement. John went to the store. He bought milk. Here, John is the antecedent, and he is the pronoun referring to John. And I think that's kind of I mean not self-explanatory. I had to go and do that myself to understand it. But yeah, man, oh my word. Huh. I will repeat, I do not like language as it is, right? Okay, anyway, 12. Create word pictures. So the audience can see it, use the medium of imagination. Right. Okay. I'm gonna stop the share there. Let's go to our first video. Check that out. A moment, child. Where did I put that? It's here. Let me go to first this one. Give it a second.
The Southern African Broadcasting Association dedication to strengthening the skills of journalists across the region in an effort to ensure public service media remains relevant, credible, as well as adaptable to both technological advancements as well as the changing needs of audiences. SABA is launching an exciting new journalism training initiative, and the program aims to equip journalists with the essential knowledge as well as practical tools that are needed to navigate the ever-evolving landscape of modern journalism. And for more on this, let's now to Mr. Stanley Similo, who is the president of the Southern African Broadcasting Association, or SABA, as well as Director General of the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation, the NBC. Stanley, it's great to have you with us. Good afternoon. So talk to us about this new initiative. How will it, help journalists to adapt to the rapidly changing media landscape, especially with the rise of digital platforms like AI and social media?
First of all, thank you for giving us an opportunity just to tell what we are doing. Look, we don't have a choice. This is not a choice thing. It's a matter of we have to be there. And we have actually realized with the advent of AI being here.
Well, we're going to continue with our interview with Mr. Stanley Similo on the Southern African Broadcasting Association, reaffirming its dedication to strengthening the skills of journalists across the region, and in an effort to do such, public service media remains quite relevant, credible, as well as adaptable to both technological advancements and the changing needs of audiences. SABA is then launching an exciting new journalism training initiative. Let's welcome Stanley once again on
that seems like I'm not poor editing, but okay.
The line. Stanley, great to have you with us once again. I mean, I was just asking if we can just start again for the benefit of our viewers. I was asking there, how will this new journalism training initiative actually assist journalists to adapt to the rapidly changing media landscape, especially with the rise of digital platforms like your AI as well as social media?
Look, it's not a choice thing. It's something that we need to do because the way technology has evolved, we are seeing already this is being applied in the newsrooms. But what we are saying, and through the training, we were saying, look, you can use AI, but AI must not override your own thoughts. And there was a study that was carried out in Namibia through Namibia, Botswana, and Zim. And you guess what? 77% of the participants actually said they are using AI daily. And but they also said themselves that part of what they are using, it's close to about 30% of what their input is, because we believe that the human element has still to be there, because the verification as to whether what you are doing is true and it's authentic, that must come from the journalists themselves. Equal to that as well, we were saying, look, when you look at Africa as a whole, we find that the narrative that is told about where we are and what we do is different. I was just now listening to President Cyril Ramaphosa regarding the issue with, I think, with the Americans. And that. The narrative that goes through there is controlled from one end. Where are we in that equation? We should be able to strengthen the voices that are coming from the continent as well. So we had people from the UN as well who spoke about how we should also be reporting on stories that are sensitive in terms of what we do. So for us, it went very well. And mind you, it was not just the journalists themselves. We also had a masterclass for Director General CEO within the media space as well. Because we are saying, in as much as we empower the ordinary journalists, if the management and leadership of these organizations is not taken care of, you will find journalists are great, but the leadership is bad. And guess what? As they say, it will always fall on leadership. And if the leaders are not properly attuned as to the new ways of doing business, you will find great organizations not performing very well. So for us, it was an all-encompassing, and it still is an all-encompassing experience of growth, both for the journalism in the newsroom and for the management, that is to make sure that journalists can operate in a safe, conducive, and equally empowering environment.
Very glad that you mentioned those, Stanley, because, I mean, journalism in the country have been accused of lazy thinking. We're failing to verify important facts. We just go on Google and we take whatever the first notes that we actually receive and put them out there as actual fact. And I mean, when we look at, the route that investigative journalism is also taking, I mean, what specific skills then or knowledge do you hope that journalists will also gain then from this program to also ensure public service media also remains credible as well as relevant?
That's a very, very, very great point that you are raising there. We are saying, in as much as we train you to do all the things that are correct, the ability to be able to reason just as a human being, the ability to be able to question and give meaning to whatever you want to write, must come from you as the journalist that has been trained. True. AI will plug up anything that it can find and it will give you. If you're just going to be relying on what it does, you will find that the level of reporting standards and the stories are becoming shallow. So for us, it's a matter of, yes, technology must be there, it must be an enabler, but technology must not be the only element of what we do that will determine what type of reporting we bring. And for us, we play in the radio, television, and the online space. And guess what? We had three great trainers. One, by the way, is from the SABC Lance, And we had a gentleman also from Seychelles, and then there was also one gentleman from Namibia. Post the training, when I was speaking to the participants, they were like, yeah, we've learned things that we would just ordinarily take for granted, but at least now there is a framework through which we will be looking at how best we can do the work that we do. And as you know, newsrooms, if you are there and you're a journalist, it doesn't matter how you report on things. All sides of the population will always attack you because today you do a good story, tomorrow you write something that may not appeal to any other person, and it gets worse. If those that have power would believe that you are reporting on them around matters that they don't like, all of a sudden you will be told that, no, your station is bad, your station is biased. But you know what? We can always provide the stats that should be able to tell and show that, look, we are balanced in terms of what we are doing. And again, you raised a point which I quickly just want to make a point to. We should not rush to be the first one to bring out a story. We should rush to be the first one that will bring out a story that has credibility in
substance.
Because the essence thereof would be, now that everybody is publishing, because everybody who has a smartphone now is a journalist, they should be able, in the case of the SABC, say, if something breaks, they should ask and say, no, let's wait. What is the SABC saying?
Absolutely.
In Namibia, that's the case where we see that when stories are breaking, people will ask, what is the NBC saying? Now, that sounds easy, but there's a premium on that. It means then that you must continuously work towards making sure that whatever you do is based on the aspects of fairness, giving the other one also the right to reply. So it's a continuous process of learning. Hence, I was saying it should not just end in the newsroom. It must get the leaders as well, those that will be informing journalists to say, go and cover the story. We must make sure that our journalists feel safe. We must make sure that our journalists feel appreciated.
All right.
And moreover, that environment within which they operate must be conducive.
Right. Okay. So I hope that was great. Something different, a little bit of a contextual angle as to why it is that where should I say South African journalism is and its progress. I do want to first, so I want as you can see, I wanted to get new just after this particular video. Let's move to this one, how to actually find news. Just give it a second to load there. There we go.
Hello, I'm Hrad, and today we're looking at the different ways that journalists find and gather news. Now, news stories don't always happen quickly. A story can take months or even years to form. Extremely hard when researching a story. They need to consider where to find their sources and to figure out what questions to ask in order to tell their story. The internet has changed this process over the years by providing access to vast amounts of information, but ultimately the thing that fuels many journalists is a sense of curiosity. That's what drives them to dig deeper and uncover critical details for meaningful news. Let's take a look.
The media landscape is changing, and journalists are finding new ways of covering the news.
But now it's 7:30. Time for Newsroom.
In the past, reporters found the news by talking to sources.
He doesn't say anything apart from the fact that he won't say anything. And
Updates from correspondents and news agencies on the ground, and newspapers. Nowadays, they still use their traditional and trusted sources. But there are new tools to find out what people are talking about online. When something big happens in the world, people post on social media. News systems flash. Correspondents around the world send alerts. Journalists put in calls to find out what's going on, teams to the scene. Reporters talk to eyewitnesses and emergency services. Gather interviews and statements.
Here come the riot police. Here come the water cannon. They're about to start.
Report live or send in material for other parts of the newsroom to use. So the point of journalism hasn't changed. But there's so much more information out there now that journalists use different tools to tell people what's happening.
Thank you very much for watching. Now you're ready to identify the process of gathering the news, ask investigative questions and discuss the importance of being a curious journalist.
It's pretty cool. Obviously, you can see that there are just so many endless sources of information and guidance on how it is that you can better understand what it is that you're learning, right? Okay. I really do actually wish we had all the time in the world to go through every single thing that, encompasses certain subject matter. But, okay, just here's a bit of a... What? Give me a second here. Okay, let's have a look at how news is written for radio. Let's go look at.
World War II are okay in writing, so it is accepted in writing, but it must be spoken as 200 rupees at the end. And Second World War when it is broadcasted. So don't start a story with as expected or in a surprise mode. So it is also not desirable to begin with a participle phrase, a personal pronoun, or a question and a quotation. Unknown or unfamiliar name should not be put in the lead. As radio is a medium of breaking news, it may sound odd and old if you begin a story with yesterday. So, unlike a newspaper, radio news is presented a number of times throughout the day. In such a situation, rewriting becomes, all the more important to relieve the boredom of the audience. So, at having to hear the news in the same manner again and again, so it will be sometimes monotonous for the listeners. So, rewriting makes the news sound fresher and enables the reporter to emphasize new angles and developments in a continuing story. So putting all five W's and one H in a radio news lead will not be ideal. So the listener, the listener may not recall information. So they have to try to rewrite or refresh the same news story many times. And the copy from the wire services should be considered as a raw material from which specified broadcast organizations prepare their news reports to fit the local needs and interest of people. Just as we expect visuals in television news, audio tape that is used in broadcast are essential to break the monotony of the sound of a single voice. So, reading one story after another, so it's better for them to use insert any audio tape, and these inserts offer variety, pace and excitement to the broadcaster. So actually actuality is a sound bite from the scene of an event, live or on tape. So in a radio news copy it is indicated as SOT. SOT is sound on tape. Capital S, capital O, and T. SOT. I think I have used it somewhere in one of my slides. We'll come to know SOT or means sound on tape. So that is what the recorded copy, the technical name of the recorded thing is SOT. So a recorded report from a reporter from the scene of the event without an actuality is called a voice report. So that is, it will only have the voice of the reporters. So now we are moving on to the next topic, radio interview. An interview is a conversation with a purpose to gather unable audio to illustrate your story. So this audio may be live or recorded. So that is radio, any interview. See, an interview is a conversation with a purpose. So, what is an interview? An interview is a conversation with a purpose to gather unable audio to illustrate the story. So, this audio may be live or recorded. The interview is essentially a spontaneous event. So, it must sound like a spontaneous event, it must not sound like a rehearsed one. So, interview is essentially a spontaneous event, and any hint of it any hint of it being rehearsed damages the interviewer's credibility. So the interviewer is actually acting on behalf of the listener, that is asking questions which the listener would want to ask. So remember, the reason for getting audio through an interview, that is to have someone else like an expert, official or eyewitnesses say something that the newscaster cannot comment. And there are three main types of interviews in a radio newscast. They are informational, interpretative, and emotional. So, what are the three radio?
Yeah, okay. I know it's a bit short, they cut off. I do wish, I mean, not I wish, I mean, I can go find it actually. All right, I'm saying to you what you're saying there towards the end about radio interviews, which we'll do a bit later as well. No, we have done that. No, we've done that in class. What am I saying? Ooh, there goes my mind. Oh, the end of the semester must come now. Anyway, but okay, great quick tips on how to write your copy, right? And there are, and the rest is obviously again covered in class, not as a throwaway statement. Again, look, obviously just you can do searches just like I've done as well to pick, specific videos that might explain to you whatever you may need. And again, at the end of it, or hesitate to um, reach out and contact me. All right, listen here, that's it. Have yourself a great week ahead, and I will see you on next week, Saturday, for our last live class. Cheers, bye.